Peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is something you learn to guard, something you fight for, something you protect like a treasure that cannot be replaced. The world is noisy, filled with opinions, expectations, and distractions, all of which compete for your attention. If you don't learn to protect your peace, you will find yourself pulled in every direction, drained by people in situations that were never worthy of your energy in the first place. Being unbothered begins with understanding that peace is priceless, and because it is priceless, you must treat it as sacred. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of mental and emotional energy. Where you spend it determines how your day unfolds. If you spend it trying to win arguments on social media, if you spend it overthinking what someone said behind your back, if you spend it stressing about things outside your control, you will end the day exhausted but empty. But if you guard your peace by being intentional about what you allow into your space, you end the day with strength, clarity, and focus. Protecting your peace means becoming selective. It means realizing that not every fight deserves your fists, not every comment deserves your clapback, and not every invitation deserves your presence. When you start valuing peace, you also begin to see how easily it can be stolen. It often doesn't take much: a negative word, a harsh tone, a disappointing text, a comparison on social media. These small moments creep in and shift your spirit before you even notice. That is why you must train yourself to catch them early. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Does this align with the person I am becoming? Will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? If the answer is no, then let it go. Guard your peace with silence, with prayer, with distance, with discipline. Protect it like the most valuable thing you own, because in truth it is. Some people won't understand when you start protecting your peace. They may call you distant or selfish. They may accuse you of thinking you're too good for them. But what they don't realize is that protecting your peace is not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better for yourself. You cannot pour into others when you're empty. You cannot be kind, creative, focused, or loving if you are constantly drained. Guarding your peace is the only way to show up fully in the places that truly matter. Think of it like a house. If your home is always unlocked, anyone can walk in, bring their chaos, and leave their mess. But if you value what's inside, you put locks on the door. You decide who is welcome, and you don't apologize for protecting what belongs to you. Your peace works the same way. If you let everyone have access to your mind and your emotions, you will always feel unsettled. But when you create boundaries and honor them, you create a safe space where your soul can rest. Protecting your peace doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending challenges don't exist. It means refusing to let those challenges steal your calm or dictate your response. Life will always bring storms, but when you are anchored in peace, the storm can rage around you and still not sink you. That is what it means to be unbothered, not untouched by life, but unshaken by it. Peace is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It's quiet, steady, and powerful. When you carry peace inside you, you walk differently. You speak differently. You handle setbacks differently. You stop reacting to every little thing because you know your spirit is too valuable to waste on trivial battles. You stop chasing people's approval because you know your worth isn't tied to their opinion. You stop running after things that don't align with your purpose because you've learned that nothing is worth losing your peace. So when you choose to protect your peace like it's priceless, you are making a decision to value yourself. You are saying that your joy, your clarity, and your destiny are more important than temporary distractions. And the more you protect your peace, the stronger you become at staying unbothered, no matter what life throws your way. He said, explain keynote 2 in 700 words without heading and any ending word. ChatGPT said, one of the greatest lessons you can learn is that not everything deserves your attention. Life will always be filled with noise, people with opinions, situations that test you, distractions that tempt you to step off course. If you try to respond to everything, you will drain yourself long before you reach the places you were meant to go. Being unbothered is not about shutting down your emotions or pretending not to care. It is about choosing wisely where to place your attention. It is about realizing that your focus is a currency and you cannot afford to spend it recklessly. Every moment you spend worrying about what someone said, you lose a moment that could have been spent on growth. Every time you let yourself get pulled into unnecessary conflict, you sacrifice energy that could have been invested in building your future. Every time you give your attention to negativity, you rob yourself of the chance to nurture something positive. Attention is powerful. Wherever it goes, your energy follows. That's why training yourself to be unbothered requires the discipline of discernment. You have to look at what's in front of you and ask, does this matter or is this a distraction? There will always be people who thrive on chaos. They stir up drama because they are not at peace with themselves. They throw shade, start arguments, and push your buttons to see if they can steal your calm. If you allow them to succeed, you are handing over control of your emotions to someone who doesn't even value their own. But when you learn to choose your battles, when you decide that not every word deserves a response, you take your power back. You stop being controlled by the noise around you, and you start being guided by the clarity within you. Placing your attention wisely also means learning to let go of the need to prove yourself. Many times we waste energy trying to convince people of our worth, trying to make them see our heart, trying to earn validation from those who have already made up their minds. That constant explaining, defending, and proving drains your spirit. When you truly understand your value, you no longer chase recognition from the wrong places. You know that your energy is better spent on becoming rather than convincing, on building rather than begging. This doesn't mean you ignore everything. There are moments that deserve your full presence, your dreams, your relationships, your healing, your growth. Being unbothered is not about carelessness, it's about clarity. It's about knowing what deserves your yes and what requires your no. It's about putting your energy into things that expand you, not things that diminish you. That's why some people will misunderstand you when you start guarding your attention. They will call you distant, detached, or arrogant, but the truth is you're not cold, you're focused. You've simply learned that spreading yourself too thin leaves you with nothing left for the things that matter most. When you start choosing where to place your attention, you begin to experience peace in ways you never knew before. The same words that once triggered you no longer move you. The same distractions that once stole your time no longer catch your eye. You become grounded, steady, and calm. Your spirit begins to rise above the noise, not because life got easier, but because you got wiser. That's what it means to train yourself to be unbothered. You've learned the difference between what deserves your energy and what does not. Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you stopped chasing every critic, every rumor, every misunderstanding. Imagine how much stronger you'd feel if you redirected that energy into your goals, your healing, your growth. Every moment you waste on things that don't matter is a moment stolen from the life you're trying to build. And that's the real cost of being bothered. It's not just about being upset, it's about being distracted from your destiny. So learn to choose. Learn to let some things pass without a reaction. Learn to place your attention where it can multiply instead of where it will be wasted. Because the more intentional you are about where your focus goes, the less bothered you will be by the noise around you, and the closer you will move toward the life you were meant to live. You said, explain Keynote 3 in 700 words without heading in any ending word. ChatGPT said, there is a deep freedom in realizing that you don't owe everyone an explanation. For most of our lives, we're taught to defend our choices, to justify our decisions, and to make sure people understand why we do what we do. But the truth is, no matter how much you explain yourself, some people will never get it. Not because you're wrong, but because they are committed to misunderstanding you. They have already decided what they believe about you, and no amount of words will shift their perspective. Training yourself to be unbothered means learning to stop giving away your peace in exchange for approval you may never receive. When you constantly explain yourself, you put your worth in the hands of others. You live on their terms, hoping they'll validate you, hoping they'll see your intentions, hoping they'll finally agree with your choices. But what happens when they don't? You end up feeling small, frustrated, and unseen. The cycle repeats itself. You explain more, defend harder, and try again, only to be met with the same doubt. It's exhausting, and it steals the energy you could have used to simply live your life. Silence can be powerful. Not every decision requires a speech. Not every move needs justification. Sometimes the most confident thing you can do is to move forward quietly without the need to be understood. People who truly know you don't need explanations, and people who are determined to doubt you won't believe them anyway. So why waste your breath? Every time you stop explaining, you reclaim your time, your dignity, and your focus. You send a message, not in words but in actions, that your life belongs to you, not to the approval of others. Think about the times you've been misunderstood. Maybe you tried to help someone and they accused you of having hidden motives. Maybe you pursued a dream and people called you unrealistic. Maybe you set a boundary and they labeled you selfish. In those moments, it's tempting to launch into long explanations. You want to fix their perspective, to clear your name, to prove your heart. But what you'll often find is that the more you explain, the less they actually listen. Because their issue isn't with your explanation, it's with their own lens. They see you through the filter of their own fear, jealousy, or insecurity, and you cannot change a filter with words. This is why you have to learn the art of letting people think what they want. It's not your job to control their perception. It's your job to stay aligned with your truth. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you gain the freedom to live unapologetically. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into their comfort zones. You stop rewriting your story to make it acceptable to them. You start owning your choices, your mistakes, your victories, all of it without waiting for permission to move forward. There is also strength in trusting that your actions will speak louder than any explanation. Over time, consistency proves what words cannot. The people who matter will see the fruit of your choices, even if they didn't understand the seed when you planted it. You don't have to argue with them about what you're doing, you just have to keep doing it. Eventually, results silence critics more effectively than explanations ever could. Of course, silence is not always easy. It requires maturity to resist the urge to defend yourself. It requires strength to let go of the need for approval. It requires wisdom to know when speaking is necessary and when it's simply wasted energy. But every time you practice restraint, you build the muscle of being unbothered. You remind yourself that your value is not up for debate, that your decisions don't need constant justification, and that your life does not require public consensus to be valid. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of seeking validation. You gain the peace that comes with living authentically, the confidence that comes with owning your truth, and the power that comes with walking your path without apology. That's what it means to be unbothered. It's not about silence for silence's sake, but about choosing silence over battles that drain you and explanations that won't change a thing. You said, explain keynote 4 in 700 words without heading and any ending word. ChatGPT said, strength is often misunderstood. Many people think strength is loud, bold, and forceful. They imagine it as speaking the last word in an argument, clapping back at an insult, or proving someone wrong in front of an audience. But true strength isn't always found in reaction. It's often found in restraint. It's in the moments when you could have responded but chose not to. It's in the times when you had every right to fight but walked away instead. Training yourself to be unbothered requires redefining what strength looks like, because the strongest version of you doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes the strongest version of you is the one who stays silent, calm, and unshaken. When you react to every insult, every doubt, every provocation, you hand over your power. You let other people dictate your emotions, your tone, and even your actions. They control you simply by pressing your buttons. That is not strength. That is vulnerability disguised as power. True strength is when you know you have the ability to react, but you choose not to, because you understand that not every fight is worth your energy. It's not about proving who's right or wrong. It's about protecting your peace and preserving your focus. Think about it. Walking away requires more courage than clapping back. Smiling when you could have argued shows more control than raising your voice. Choosing silence when you know the words you could say would cut deep. That is mastery over self. It is easy to let anger lead. It takes discipline to let wisdom lead. And wisdom knows that reaction rarely brings peace, but restraint almost always does. There will be moments when people will try to test you. They may insult you, misunderstand you, or even betray you. Your natural instinct will be to respond immediately, to show them you cannot be disrespected, to make them regret how they treated you. But if you pause long enough, you'll realize that their actions reveal more about them than they ever could about you. By reacting, you sink to their level. By restraining yourself, you rise above. The higher you go in life, the more you'll discover that not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some things are beneath your response, and learning to let them go is a sign of growth, not weakness. Restraint is not silence rooted in fear. It is silence rooted in confidence. It's the quiet assurance that you don't need to defend your worth because your worth is not up for debate. It's the calmness of knowing your identity is not tied to other people's opinions or provocations. When you embrace restraint, you are saying, I know who I am and I don't need this moment to prove it. That kind of strength cannot be shaken because it is anchored in self-respect, not external validation. At the same time, restraint is not about avoiding conflict altogether. It's about choosing the battles that actually matter. There will be times when speaking up is necessary, when standing firm is essential, when silence would do more harm than good. But discernment is key. Strength is knowing when to engage and when to walk away. Weakness is fighting every battle as if your identity depends on it. Real strength is understanding that peace is sometimes worth more than being right. When you practice restraint, you also protect your future. Words spoken in anger cannot be unsaid. Actions taken in haste cannot be undone. Many people have ruined opportunities, relationships, and reputations because they could not control their reactions. But when you choose restraint, you create space for clarity. You give yourself time to process, to think, to respond with wisdom instead of emotion. That space is where growth happens. The more you train yourself to find strength in restraint, the more unbothered you become. You stop needing to prove your power in every room. You stop needing to match negativity with negativity. You begin to realize that your silence, your calm, your decision to keep walking forward is sometimes the loudest statement you could ever make. True strength isn't always about what you say, it's about what you choose not to say. And when you master that, you hold a power that no one can take from you. You said, explain keynote 5 in 700 words without heading in any ending word. ChatGPT said, when you learn to redirect your energy away from distractions and toward growth, everything about your life begins to shift. The truth is, drama will always exist. People will always have opinions, circumstances will always test you, and negativity will always try to knock on your door. But training yourself to be unbothered means refusing to open that door. It's making a conscious choice to stop pouring your energy into things that don't serve your purpose and start investing that energy into building the life you know you're called to live. Every moment you spend stressing over someone's gossip, every minute you waste replaying an argument in your head is energy stolen from your future. That's energy you could have used to write, to create, to heal, to learn, to grow. Think about how much time you've lost being consumed by things that did nothing to elevate you. The mind replays the insult, the heart replays the betrayal, and before you know it, you've given away days, weeks, maybe even months of your life to something that should have lasted only a few seconds. Redirecting your energy means deciding that your destiny is too important to waste on things that have no power to change who you are becoming. This doesn't mean you ignore pain or pretend negativity doesn't exist. It means you acknowledge it without giving it authority. You can recognize when something hurts you without letting it define your mood, your focus, or your decisions. When you redirect your energy, you start asking, what can I do with this pain? How can I use it to fuel my growth instead of my bitterness? Suddenly, challenges stop being roadblocks and start becoming lessons. The same situation that once drained you now becomes the soil where your strength is planted. Growth requires intentionality. You cannot drift into healing or stumble into purpose. You have to choose it over and over again, and that choice begins with energy. What you give your energy to is what grows in your life. If you water negativity, it flourishes. If you water hope, discipline, faith, and resilience, those things flourish instead. Every time you walk away from drama and walk toward growth, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. Redirecting energy toward destiny also requires courage because it often means leaving familiar patterns behind. Some people thrive on drama. They don't feel alive unless something chaotic is happening. If you decide to stop engaging, you may lose connection with people who depended on you to feed that cycle, and that loss can feel lonely. But growth is rarely comfortable. Letting go of what drains you is the price of stepping into what builds you. Eventually, the space created by leaving drama behind becomes room for peace, for clarity, for healthier relationships, and for opportunities that align with your calling. It's important to remember that destiny is not just about big, life-changing events. It's about small, consistent choices. Every time you choose not to argue, every time you resist the urge to clap back, every time you decide to keep building instead of being distracted, you are shaping your destiny. You are proving to yourself that you value where you're going more than where you've been. And those little choices add up until one day you realize you've become a person who doesn't just avoid drama. You've become someone so focused, so grounded, so aligned that drama can't even find its way to you anymore. Your energy is your currency. You only have so much of it each day. Spend it wisely. If you waste it on things that don't matter, you'll never have enough left for the things that do. But if you invest it in growth, in healing, in your goals, in your faith, the return will always be greater than what you gave. Training yourself to be unbothered is really about training yourself to protect that currency, to refuse to spend it recklessly, and to pour it into what will bring you